Life, at that point, felt pretty close to perfect. I had a stable job at a well-known corporate firm, working in the operations department. I wasn't the guy who made a ton of noise, but I got things done, quietly, efficiently, and without drama. My name wasn't always at the top of the charts, but my work spoke for itself. Lately, my efforts had started catching attention. Just last week, I received an internal email about possible promotion opportunities in the next quarter. It felt like all the long nights and unpaid overtime were finally paying off. Outside of work, I was in a committed relationship with Sarah, a bright and ambitious woman working in public relations. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for almost 2. She was funny, articulate, and driven, the kind of person who could light up a room and still make it feel like you were the only one in it. She supported my career, asked about my meetings, celebrated my wins, and stood by me during setbacks. We had plans, marriage, maybe a house outside the city, even a dog someday. Or so I thought. My boss, Mr. Harlan, was a man you couldn't ignore. Charismatic, persuasive, and just a bit too slick. People respected him, even if some quietly questioned his ethics. He had a way of making you feel seen one moment and completely invisible the next. But that's corporate life, right? You play the game. Back then, I thought I had things under control, a promising future at work, a woman I loved, and goals that seemed closer every day. But as I would come to learn soon enough, perfection is sometimes just a well-decorated illusion. Waiting for the first crack, it started small, barely noticeable at first. Sarah, who used to be quick with replies and excited to chat after work, began responding later than usual. When I asked if everything was all right, she always smiled and said, "Just busy, babe." Her phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now almost always in her pocket or flipped over on the table. I told myself not to overthink it. People get busy, routines shift, relationships evolve. But there were other things too. Sarah suddenly seemed unusually interested in my workplace, specifically in my boss. She'd ask little things like, "So, what's Mr. Harlan really like outside of meetings? Or do you think he sees your potential?" It felt like curiosity at first, supportive even. But the questions kept coming, too specific, too frequent. Then came the night of the annual company party. Sarah looked amazing, as always, and mingled with my co-workers like she belonged there. But what caught my eye was how comfortably she chatted with Mr. Harlan. The kind of comfort that didn't make sense for two people who had supposedly only met once before. They stood close, laughing at inside jokes I wasn't a part of. I watched from across the room, a drink in hand, pretending to be unbothered. Later that night, a colleague nudged me and joked, "Man, your boss sure gets along with everyone's girlfriends, doesn't he?" I laughed it off, but the words stuck with me. I looked back toward them, still talking, still laughing. Something about it all felt off, but I shook the feeling. I trusted Sarah. I had to. After all, we had built something real, hadn't we? Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe IT happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Quiet, uneventful, just like any other. We had just finished dinner, and Sarah had gone to take a long shower, leaving her phone on the couch beside me. Normally, I wouldn't have even noticed. We trusted each other. That had always been the foundation, until recently. But that night, fate had other plans. A message notification lit up the screen. It was from a contact saved under the name MH, just initials. But the profile picture was unmistakable. Mr. Harlan. I froze. For a moment, I debated ignoring it. Curiosity, though, has a cruel way of getting the better of us, especially when it's fed by doubt. I picked up the phone, unlocked without a passcode. She must have forgotten, and opened the thread. What I found drained the color from my face. The conversation wasn't just inappropriate. It was intimate, layered with flirtation and manipulation. Messages like, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to do it again." And he still doesn't know, right? Faced with tears of joy, leapt out of the screen like venom. My hands trembled as I scrolled further, finding dates and times. Hotel meetups. Secret lunches. Compliments on keeping a straight face around me. Even pictures, some suggestive, others just moments of them smiling together. And then came the worst of it. Messages about me. He's too naive. Still waiting for that promotion like it's gonna happen, faced with tears of joy. I told HR he wasn't leadership material. Should keep him where he is. So this was why things at work had suddenly plateaued. Why that promotion talk went silent. My own girlfriend was conspiring with my boss, laughing at my expense behind my back. My throat tightened, and my stomach turned. I felt small, betrayed, and humiliated, all at once. Still, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I did what I could. I took out my phone and began silently screenshotting everything. Every message, every photo, every timestamp. I uploaded them all to a secure cloud folder, careful not to leave a trace. My heart was pounding in my chest, but my face stayed still. Moments later, I heard the bathroom door creak open. Sarah stepped out, towel wrapped around her, humming some tune as if nothing had changed. She looked at me, smiled, and asked, "Everything okay?" I met her eyes and smiled back. "Yeah, all good." I handed her phone back and stood up to grab a glass of water. My hands were steady now. The fire inside me had gone cold. Everything wasn't okay. Not even close. But she didn't know that. Not yet. In the days that followed, I became a master of pretending. I didn't confront Sarah. I didn't scream, accuse, or cry. I simply observed, ate breakfast with her, kissed her goodnight, listened to her talk about her busy schedule. Every moment felt like walking through a minefield, but I never let it show. If she noticed anything different, she didn't say. Or maybe she just assumed I was too dull, too trusting, too passive to figure anything out. That's what they both seemed to think of me, judging by the messages. At work, I kept my head down. I smiled in meetings, cracked small jokes with coworkers, gave Mr. Harlan polite nods in passing. It was surreal, pretending everything was normal while knowing the truth. But there was something strangely empowering about it, holding the truth in silence, letting it settle like a storm I was preparing to unleash. At night, I worked on my exit plan, updated my resume, reached out to a few quiet connections on LinkedIn. No posts, no drama, just private messages and strategic applications. Within 2 weeks, I had a job offer lined up. It wasn't quite the promotion I had been aiming for, but it was a step forward, away from this toxic place. Then, I drafted my resignation letter. It was short, professional, and respectful. No mention of betrayal, no airing of dirty laundry. Just appreciation for the opportunities and a simple statement of my intention to move on. When I handed it into HR, they were surprised. I could see the confusion in their eyes, but they didn't question it much. After all, people leave companies all the time. What they didn't know was that I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Every message between Sarah and Mr. Harlan, every chat, every photo, every reference to me, was saved, backed up in multiple places. I cross-referenced dates and times, linked them to work emails and calendar entries. I was building a case, not just a reaction. This wasn't going to be a messy breakup or a public meltdown. This was going to be justice, delivered silently, strategically, and on my terms. The morning of my last day at the company felt strangely peaceful. I got ready as usual, ate breakfast with Sarah, who kissed me on the cheek and said, "Good luck on your last day," smiling face with smiling eyes, as if everything between us was still real. She didn't know that I already knew. She didn't know this would be the last morning we'd share in that apartment. At the office, my team had arranged a modest farewell, coffee, pastries, and a card passed around with signatures and kind words. It was bittersweet. Most of these people had no idea what had gone on behind the scenes. They thought I was just moving on to a better opportunity. In a way, I was. Mr. Harlan stopped by just before lunch. His usual confident swagger intact, he extended his hand. "Sad to see you go. Keep in touch, yeah," he said with that polished grin that had fooled so many. I shook his hand and returned the smile. "Of course. All the best." That moment felt surreal, like shaking hands with a mask you finally learned to see through. But I didn't flinch. I didn't let it show. After lunch, I made one final stop. HR. "Just wanted to leave this with you," I said calmly, handing over a sealed envelope to the HR manager. She looked up, puzzled. "Is this something you'll want to review?" "It's related to company conduct and ethics," I said simply. Inside the envelope was everything. Screenshots of messages between Sarah and Mr. Harlan, organized in sequence. Notes, dates, times, cross-referenced with work events. Detailed evidence of personal and professional boundaries crossed, favoritism, and retaliation. And at the very top, a signed, formal complaint. She nodded slowly, sensing the weight behind my calm tone. "Thank you. We'll handle this seriously." I nodded, turned around, and walked out of that building. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with clarity. There was no need to look back. I had said everything I needed to without speaking a word. Justice had been quietly handed over, and now it was in motion. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. A week into my new job, things were starting to feel normal again. The fresh environment, new faces, and clean slate were a welcome change. I was beginning to breathe easier, one quiet morning at a time. Then, during lunch break, I got a call from an old colleague. "Man, did you hear?" he said, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. I stepped away from my desk. "Hear what?" HR launched an internal investigation last week. About Harlan. Something about misconduct. Apparently, someone submitted a full report with evidence. I let the silence stretch just long enough to keep my tone innocent. "Wow, that's serious." "Yeah, they pulled him into a closed-door meeting on Monday. He's suspended. Pending inquiry," they said. "No one's seen him since." I thanked him for the update and hung up. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. But I felt the weight shift inside me, the quiet satisfaction of truth doing its job. That evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. "Sarah, I just found out. I can't believe you would do this to me. I never meant for things to go so far." I didn't reply. An hour later, another message. "Sarah, you should have talked to me first. You misunderstood everything. He was just a friend." I was confused. Then, "Please, can we meet and talk? You owe me that much." I owed her nothing. I muted the thread. She started posting cryptic stories on social media. Black and white quotes about betrayal and fake people. One post read, "Some people act like saints while burning everything behind them." Another, "I guess loyalty means nothing anymore." I didn't respond. I didn't even view them. Meanwhile, I heard more whispers from former coworkers. The company's PR had taken a hit. Rumors leaked, employees talking, screenshots somehow making it beyond HR. The board had stepped in to review leadership culture. The story about Mr. Harlan wasn't new to everyone, it seemed. Whispers surfaced about other women, young interns, contract hires, stories that had been buried, disbelieved, or ignored. My evidence had cracked something open. Sarah, apparently, had resigned too. Voluntarily or not, no one was sure. It wasn't about revenge. I wasn't interested in watching them fall. I didn't need apologies or explanations wrapped in lies. I just needed the truth out there. And for once, it was. Karma didn't come loud. It came slow and precise. It didn't need me to swing a sword. It just needed me to stay silent and let the facts speak. In the weeks that followed, I made a conscious decision to close every door that led back to the pain. I blocked Sarah on every platform, phone, social media, even email. Not out of bitterness, but for peace. Her voice, her excuses, her attempts to twist the narrative had no place in the life I was rebuilding. The chapter was over, and I wasn't going to keep rereading the same lines hoping for a different ending. I also started therapy, something I had once thought I didn't need. But those weekly sessions became my anchor. They gave me the space to unpack the betrayal, to say things out loud I hadn't even admitted to myself. There, I wasn't just the guy who got cheated on or the employee who quietly exposed corruption. I was a man learning to breathe again. I traveled a bit. Nothing grand, just a few solo trips to quiet places. Mountains, lakes, places where silence felt like healing, not emptiness. I brought books instead of baggage. Picked up my old guitar again. Went on long walks without a destination. For the first time in years, I was living for myself, not for someone else's validation or affection. Dating eventually returned to the picture, but gently, with care. I wasn't looking to fill a void. I wasn't trying to replace Sarah. I was simply open, curious, and cautious. And with time, I met people who reminded me that trust could still exist. That love didn't have to come with hidden terms. What surprised me most was that I didn't crave revenge anymore. I didn't sit around hoping Sarah or Mr. Harlan were suffering. That was their world now, not mine. I had stepped out of the fire, and I had no desire to go back. Peace, it turned out, felt better than victory. Life kept moving forward, and so did I. Wiser, more grounded, a little scarred maybe, but not broken. The betrayal that once shook me became a lesson, and from it, I emerged stronger, smarter, calmer, finally free. Looking back now, I realize I never had to shout. I didn't need to create a scene, destroy reputations with loud accusations, or beg for justice. I let the truth speak, clearly, quietly, and with purpose. There's a strange kind of strength in silence. Not the kind that bottles everything up, but the kind that listens, watches, and chooses when to act. When I discovered the betrayal, I could have erupted. Instead, I paused. I planned. I protected my peace. People often confuse quiet with weakness. They expect anger, chaos, retaliation. But what they don't see is the calm before the storm, the clarity in someone who refuses to be dragged into a spiral of drama. I trusted my instincts. I chose dignity over revenge. And in the end, I didn't just walk away from a toxic relationship and a corrupt workplace. I walked away with my self-respect intact. No screaming, no breakdowns, just truth delivered with precision. And that, I've learned, is real power.